everybody's end time and desire to have dinner later and stuff. So thank you for coming to our program's virtual info session and our networking event tonight. My name is Dr. Erin Stiles. I'm the director of U of T's Medical Genomics program right now, and it is my pleasure to welcome all of you to this session. So before we begin, I just want to hear from some of you. Where are you guys zooming in from? So I'm here in Toronto. Our other core faculty members are also local right now, but where are you guys coming to us from? Is everybody local? Is everybody coming from Toronto right now? So you guys can sound off in the chat. Where are you? Hamilton, Ottawa, McMaster, amazing. Thunder Bay, okay, that's pretty far. Maple, Vancouver. Oh, awesome, good, strong represent. Oh, Mexico, yes, amazing. Oakville. Oh, awesome, okay, from near and far. Thank you guys. Kingston. Awesome. So keep dropping your locations in the chat. It looks like we are coming from near and far. So far, our furthest, I think, is Mexico, unless I missed somebody. But that's great. Thank you guys very much for coming. Oh, okay, amazing. Yeah, that's the farthest. Okay, amazing. Thank you guys very, very much for coming. And thanks for coming to learn about medical genomics. So before I launch into telling you about the Medical Genomics program, or the MedGen program, as we call it for short, I just want to talk about the field of medical genomics for a second. So the study of genomics represents this ability to understand and interpret, and then really harness the information that's contained within our DNA. And we know that this is a really rapidly growing area. I'm sure that you guys are soaking that in from your undergrad, any professional experiences you're having, that this has really far implications. And these implications are stretching right from the lab bench, where we're making all these cutting edge discoveries, right out to patients' bedsides, where we're trying to implement all the things that we've learned in research to help people live better, healthier lives. So medical genomics is this emerging clinical discipline that's relying on using genomic information about an individual to help inform decisions about their clinical care. And there have been huge numbers of technical advancements happening in this relatively new field. And these are driving us towards a new kind of healthcare, where we're constantly amassing and then trying to understand genetic and genomic data to make differences in people's lives. So the field is explosive right now, and we know more about the human genome and about how our genetic information impacts our health than we have ever known before. But the fast-paced nature of these advancements is actually doing something kind of negative. It's creating a widening knowledge gap between all this cutting-edge genomics research and what we can actually get into current clinical practice. So what we can take to patients' bedsides to help people live better lives. And my slides are frozen. No, there we go. Okay, so with that knowledge gap in mind, why would you do a master's in medical genomics? Great question. In collaboration with a whole bunch of policymakers, researchers, industry, and healthcare leaders, we in the MedGen program in the Department of Molecular Genetics here at the University of Toronto have identified that there's this emerging need for laboratory professionals and for clinicians who can generate and integrate and interpret all of this genetic and genomic data that we are constantly amassing now. And so that is what this program is situated to provide for our students. So the Professional Masters in Health Sciences, or the MHSc in Medical Genomics, will place our graduates right at the vanguard of genomic medicine. And we're really oriented towards this new way of thinking about research and about clinical science, where genetic and genomic data are routinely being collected, routinely being analyzed across an enormous range of patient populations and for many different medical reasons. And so our mission then as a program is to provide our graduate students with this really unique training and learning opportunity to teach them practical and theoretical aspects of modern genetics and genomics with a very strong focus on clinical applications, and to give our students directly actionable skills that we know they're going to need in the field and career enabling experiences so that they're going to have the tools that they need to get a great job when they graduate. Let's let people in. There we go. Okay, so the program consists of a core set of lecture, discussion, and project-based courses spanning 2 years. Notably, there's no graduate thesis, and that is a major difference between this program and the other grad programs in our department. So there's a lot more information about all of our core courses on the program website. But in brief, our students tend to be taking 2 pretty high intensity classes at a time, and then that's it. And throughout the program, you're also required to take 4 elective short courses. So that's what we're painting the picture of here on this slide. Your first year of study is dedicated primarily to learning core competencies. So you're doing things like advanced human genetics, biostats, and genomic methods. Then the second year is focusing more on big picture application-based courses. And then we culminate in this capstone practicum project. So there's going to be an opportunity to frozen again. There we go. There's going to be an opportunity to hear a bit more about the practicum shortly, but as a general overview, our program has pre-existing relationships with numerous groups around the GTA and across Southern Ontario. And although the type of practicum projects that our students end up placed in are varied, they tend to fall into 4 or 5 major categories, including clinical diagnostics, clinical research, industry or biotech startups, government agencies, and then there's also this other category, because there's always this opportunity for our students to organize a self-directed placement if they have a specific interest that isn't reflected in our current practicum partnerships. And you can ask more about that later if you have questions about that. So if you were to do a program like this, what would you do? What do our grads do? How do they address this knowledge gap that we've identified in our healthcare system? As a professional program, this is a really important question for us. And as students who are thinking about grad school, I think it's safe to assume it's a pretty important question for you as well. One of the biggest goals of our program is to prepare our grads with career-enabling skills for immediate practical implementation. And so with that in mind, our grads should expect to be suited for an enormous variety of professional roles when they graduate. First and foremost, we know that our graduates are ideally suited to working in clinical diagnostics facilities or in research labs. And here they're really going to be implementing the tools of genomic medicine and filling this major and growing need in the realm of genome and variant analysis and annotation. So this is a huge umbrella term for a type of job where you're analyzing genomic data all the time. We also know that our graduates are attractive to publicly funded enterprises and to private companies that are, again, generating and interpreting genomic data. And this could either be for direct-to-consumer delivery or for the clinic. We know that based on our program's really strong emphasis on both verbal and written communication, our grads are also really well suited to a huge variety of science communication roles, project management, consulting, and health policy. Some of our students who come into the program are already clinicians, or they're well on their way to becoming clinicians in some capacity. And so these clinical graduates who enter into the program either already established in their professional practice or on a really clear clinical trajectory are expected to finish the program and then complete their clinical training or return to their clinical practice in some kind of a new capacity. And we also recognize that, of course, every year, some of our students are going to decide to pursue further education after they graduate from the MedGen program. And this could be in a number of relevant fields, but the most popular seem to be medical school, genetic counseling, or PhD level studies. So this degree really allows graduates to address an observed need in both the lab and the clinic-facing sides of the field of medical genomics, and it enables new kinds of career paths. And this is something that I want to touch on before I move on. So I opened up by saying that our program is really geared towards this new era of research and clinical science, and I want to sit there for a second before we move on. So in both the clinical and in research labs, genetic and genomic tests are a growing component of the data that is being used to guide clinical treatment and guide research. And these tests have really progressed. If you guys are in molecular biology or genetics or any related field in your undergrad studies, I'm sure that you will appreciate that we've moved from studying one gene at a time to studying panels of genes where multiple genes, information about multiple genes is being collected at once. And now we can study entire exomes or entire genomes. And so as we scale up there, there's this corresponding increase in complexity of both understanding all that data and also communicating the results of all that data is becoming more difficult. So I just spent a couple minutes telling you about all the career options in the field that exist right now that we know that our graduates are leaving our program and entering into. But because this field is changing so much and so fast, In addition to the possibilities that are already on the slide, we're also training students for jobs that don't exist yet. And so if you join us in the fall, by the time you graduate in 2025, this slide will look different and there will be different kinds of jobs available. So hopefully I've piqued your interest a little bit. Now I'm going to talk briefly about our application process, specifically who are our ideal applicants, what do you need to submit, and what can you do to prepare. And I'm also going to take this opportunity to highlight that all of the information that I'm about to share can be found on our program website, which is right here at the bottom of the slide, moleculargenetics.utoronto.ca/medical genomics. And I think that hopefully one of our faculty members who's on the line is going to drop that link into the chat for you now, so you don't have to write that down. All right, who can apply? What are some interesting things about this program? Our program is the very first of its kind in Canada. One of the things that makes us special is that we're a dual stream program. So we accept students into either a clinical stream or a laboratory stream. And so in a very general sense, to enter into the clinical stream, applicants must have completed a PharmD or an equivalent degree in pharmacy or pharmacology, a PDEP accredited BSc in food and nutrition, so that's a Canadian accreditation, a nurse practitioner graduate program, a genetic counseling program, at least 1 year of an undergraduate medical degree while remaining in good standing with your medical schools. So for the Canadians among us, that would represent being done Foundations 1. Or you can have completed a recognized MD program, and that could be local or an international MD program. To enter into the lab stream, applicants must have completed a 4-year BSc in a relevant discipline. And so we've listed a few here that we know are a great fit for our program, but this is not an exhaustive list. And there's lots of flexibility in this academic history, especially if you've been working professionally in the field. And the cool thing is that these two student streams move through the program as a single cohort. For the most part, they take all the same classes and engage in all the same activities. And the idea is that this shared training environment lets students better appreciate the role of genetic and genomic testing in both medical practice and in laboratory work. And it really gives us the opportunity for some experience-based discussions, as people in these two streams are going to provide really different voices and really different perspectives in our classrooms. I also want to note that your tuition is totally independent of your stream of entry, so it costs the same amount of money to join the lab or the clinical stream. Tuitions for all of the graduate programming is set annually by the University of Toronto, so it's totally out of our hands. While the exact amount for next year hasn't been announced yet, domestic students should expect to be paying just over $10,000 annually. International students, you should expect to be paying just about $35,000 annually. As a professional program, we do not offer our students a research stipend, and this is mainly because our students are not primarily focused on research. That having been said, all of our students are eligible for TA positions, university work-study positions, which are paid positions, and the Ontario Graduate Scholarship. And some of our students are also eligible for Temerity Faculty of Medicine needs-based bursaries, student bank loans, and OSAP loans. In terms of actually applying to the program, every single thing that you need to know about how to apply to MedGen is on our website, and it's in 2 major locations that I want to highlight here. Details about our admissions pipeline are available here, moleculargenetics.utoronto.ca/medgen admission information, and one of our faculty members is going to drop that in the chat for you. More specific instructions covering how to apply and what to submit with your application are provided in another location, in our application procedures location. So the front end of that URL is the same, --medgen application procedures. All right. And again, that link will hopefully be appearing shortly in the chat for you. So I'm not going to go into too much depth in this session about the specifics of the application process, since it's very, very clearly and granularly laid out on our website, very comprehensive, but I do want to very briefly touch on a few really important things that can be kind of confusing in our application process. All of the applications should be submitted online through the School of Graduate Studies at the following website, admissions.sgs.utoronto.ca/apply. So you cannot apply directly to our department. You apply to the School of Graduate Studies. And in this applications portal, there's an opportunity to select our program in particular. We have got one more round of admissions during this academic year, which is for a start date in September. So if you want to start grad school in September, you're about to get ready to prepare your application. You'll notice that within our application deadline, there are actually two important dates to keep track of. The first of these, so May 1st, is the deadline for your application package to be submitted to the School of Graduate Studies portal. The second date, which is 2 weeks later on May 15th, is the deadline for any additional documents that accompany your application. So this could be things like your reference letters or your transcripts. These can come in up to 2 weeks later. They are also going to be uploaded to that SGS portal, but you have an extra 2 weeks to get your extra documents in. If you have any questions about this process, please don't hesitate to ask them during this session. In the next few slides, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what you should be including in your application package. So a completed application is going to include either 5 or 6 things, depending on whether or not you're a domestic or an international applicant. So domestic students, you're going to need to submit 3 reference letters, a scan of your transcripts, your CV, your transcript summary form, a letter of intent, and that's it. And international students, you will also need to submit a proof of English language proficiency, unless one of your transcripts indicates very clearly that the language of instruction was English. All right. So again, detailed instructions for completing these items are listed on our application procedures webpage. There are a few elements that I would like to draw your attention to before we move on. When you are completing your SGS application, you're going to be asked to provide contact information for your 3 referees. These people will then be automatically contacted by the School of Graduate Studies when you press submit on your application. The deadline there again is May 1st to press submit. So you should ask your references well in advance if they're up for writing a reference letter for you, so that they're not surprised when they get that reference request from the School of Graduate Studies. And we have some tips on how to choose your referees on our website, and I recommend checking those out. There is some finesse associated with how to pick a reference. All right, the transcript summary form is something that helps our admissions committee determine how well your academic background has prepared you for success in our program. So it's going to ask you to outline some of the courses that you've taken that touch on various academic nodes. It's really important for you to know that the categories that you're going to see in the transcript summary form are not prescriptive. They're not prerequisites for getting into the program. So for example, it's going to ask you if you've taken any coding classes, ethics classes, philosophy classes, law classes. Those are not prerequisites. They're not required for entry. The admissions committee would just be really interested to hear about it if you have taken classes like this. And if you're not sure exactly how to complete your transcript summary form, we also have a how-to video posted on our YouTube channel, which is really, really helpful if you want to check that out. So you can find us on YouTube at MHSc Medical Genomics 6343. All right. If we have any international students or students who are applying to the program with an international degree, I really encourage you to go check out our international students page, which we're going to post in the chat, the link to that right now, hopefully. And my cat may or may not be making an appearance in a minute. All right. The letter of intent is important enough to your application that it deserves its own slide. I very strongly encourage you to include in your letter a description of why you are interested in joining the program. And you should also tell us why we as an admissions committee, as a program, should be interested in you. So you have to sell yourself a little bit. You should be thinking about telling us your short-term plans and your long-term plans. If there's a particular job you want to get into, if you know that there's something you want to do after grad school, tell us about that in your letter of intent. You should tell us about your relevant experiences that would make you a great fit. And you also have the option, it's not mandatory, but you have the option here to tell us about any extenuating circumstances that might have impacted your transcript. So if you had a rough year in second year for whatever reason, you can use the letter of intent as an opportunity to address it head on. to give our admissions committee some context. I would encourage you to steer clear of using the letter to write out your life story. So for example, if you're thinking about writing something like ever since I was a child, you may want to rethink that strategy a little bit since it's not that informative for our committee. Try not to focus too much on things other than academia, science, clinical work, or your research efforts, unless it's especially relevant to your narrative. So steer clear of things like in my role as a server at this restaurant. That may not be as helpful for our committee as other things that you can speak to. And you also don't need to focus too much on your coursework in your letter of intent, because we're going to have your transcript summary form. We're going to have all your transcripts. We there to see what kind of background you have. So don't focus too much on your courses in your letter. All right. After we have all your application material and after the admissions committee has had a chance to go through all of the applications, all of our promising applicants are going to be invited for short virtual interviews. This admissions cycle are going to take place over the month of June. And you're going to be notified that you've been selected for an interview via email. So when you submit your application package, make sure that you've typed your email address in there correctly, and then keep checking that email address that you've listed as a point of contact for a letter from us. So you'll have to respond to our email in order to confirm your interview date and time. And if you don't respond, we will give that interview time to somebody else. All right, so the interviews are the very last step in the admissions pipeline for our program. After this stage, you're going to be notified by the School of Graduate Studies and by the Molecular Genetics Department when a formal decision about your application has been made. And if we've decided to make you an offer of admission, I am also going to reach out to you personally to invite you to join us. So if you get in, you're going to get 3 letters in short succession from U of T, our department, and me. So again, make sure you've got your email address correct in there. All right, so should you do it? Right now, we are looking for the class of 2025 to join us next September, and we want people who are excited about genomic medicine and who want to get the training that they need to be ready to fill this really huge gap that needs to be filled right at the intersection of genetic and genomic research, clinical practice, informatics and data analysis, bioethics, and new biomedical technology. We know that all of these industries are changing and new ones are growing to accommodate this changing landscape of genomic medicine. And we really have every reason to believe that some of the most in-demand jobs for our graduates 2 years from now are going to be the ones that are only just now being developed to meet the needs of this exciting field. So we know that there's a need for people with this kind of education, and we're going to give our students the tools that they need to situate themselves here, to solve problems in this field, and to carve out really exciting careers for themselves in a bunch of different areas. So if that sounds good to you, you should apply. I'm going to end right here by saying that we're now accepting our applications for September 2023 start. In a minute, we're going to move into the second part of our info session, which is a live panel discussion with some of our current students. But I also want to note that you're more than welcome to reach out to me or to our general emails account for more information at any time. My email address is erin.stiles@utoronto.ca. Our administrative accounts, if you have specific application questions, those questions can go to our admin account, medicalgenomics@utoronto.ca. If you have any questions about how to apply, about connecting with references, or about the program in general, I really encourage you to reach out to us. I also want to encourage you to keep in touch with us in other ways. So I already mentioned our YouTube channel, but you can also find us on a lot of other platforms, including Instagram, Twitter. Newly, we are on TikTok, and of course, we're on LinkedIn. Can't encourage you enough to read through the information that's on our program website. Again, everything that I've said and more is up on our program website. And if you want to get a bit of an insider view of what our current students are up to and have been up to, you can explore our student blog, which is called the MedGen Project. You can find that at uofTmedicalgenomics.blog.home. That's all I'm going to say. Before I hand the mic over, I'm just going to describe what the rest of the session is going to look like. So in a minute, we're going to have our student panel, so you can hear about the program from a selection of our really, truly fantastic current students who have joined us on the call. After the panel is done, we're going to move into sort of choose your own adventure breakout rooms, where you're going to be able to hear from and ask questions directly to some of our core faculty members and student ambassadors about a range of topics, including what you might do after graduation, our capstone practicum project, getting your application package ready, and even questions about our core curriculum. You can ask those in the breakout room. So that's the plan for the rest of our time together. Now I'm going to stop sharing in a second. I'm going to ask one of our core faculty members and the coordinator of our